welcome to the For Fun of Knit podcast. My name is Linda and I'm coming to you from a somewhat sunny South Surrey, which is 45 minutes outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. If this is your first time visiting the channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, thank you so much. Good to see you again. I live here in Surrey with my husband Patrick and my beautiful beast Duke, who is a cross between a shepherd, Belgian shepherd, and a border collie. He's got the body of a shepherd and the coat of a border collie. He's just beautiful, and he's always right there lying beside me. But thank you for joining me today. I'm glad to be back. I was really trying to do a Zoom call with my sister, or a Zoom podcast with my sister, but I don't have the brain space to figure it out yet, so I'll get there at some point. But this is a video cast or podcast about my adventures and misadventures in knitting and fibery things. I say misadventures because half of the fun of knitting is learning from all the mistakes, and I make plenty for all of you. So no worries, but certainly wanted to share any of that exploration in knitting and yarn and fibers with you. You might learn something, you might just get entertained by it, or maybe you just like listening to a voice while you're knitting. And I certainly understand that because I like podcasts for that reason too. It's just nice sometimes to have someone to knit with, and I am the only peep in my neighborhood that knits. So yeah, and no knit nights anymore. Still, to this day, no knit nights. So I have adopted, just on a tangent, the Tuesday night knit night with Knit and Chat with Noelle and Kelly from Knits and Pieces. So love them, love the whole gang that shows up there. So if any of you are watching, hi guys. It's a virtual knit night, but it's a lot of fun. So that was my little tangent. But this podcast, I don't make money. I'm not a dyer. I'm not a project bag maker. I don't have an Etsy shop. None of that. So it is strictly for the fun of knit. And no social or political commentary either, because hey, we get enough of that just listening to the news, which I'm almost to the point where I'm going to stop watching the news because it is the same stories every day. Gets a little overwhelming. I don't know if you feel the same, but sometimes I just want to block it all out. And that's what this knitting channel is about. So grab whatever drink you'd like. I'm just having regular coffee, which is freshly brewed and piping hot, which is lovely. And we're going to do things a little bit backwards today. I'm going to start with the giveaway. So the giveaway was last video's comments. And it was all about, do you swatch or don't you swatch? Are you a swatcher or are you not a swatcher? And we kind of did a little bit of a survey. So I thought I would lead with giving away that wonderful skein of yarn. And that way, if you're just here for the fun of getting some yarn, no harm, no foul, fill your boots. And then you can sign out after that, tune out after that. If not, I am going to go over a few finished objects. Can't imagine what they are. And some whips, and then some acquisitions, because we went to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. And I will talk more about that in the chatter portion at the end. So let's get right to it. I am going to confess that this is my third time trying to do this podcast. I don't know what karma was, good or bad, but I tried twice before and it did not work. And so I had already done the comment generator and I didn't want to redo it and not honor the original person who won. So without further ado, this is the skein of yarn that I am giving away, and it was all based on those comments regarding swatching. And I think I had 118 swatches or comments. And this is the rose sock base from Lily and Pine, which is a dyer out of Calgary, Alberta. I think it's Calgary, Alberta. And this is in her colorway. This is a 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. And it is in her Guernsey style colorway. Look at that beautiful tonal denim-y blue. Love, love, love this. So this is the actual prize. And the person who has won, so exciting, Cassandra Casto. Hopefully you can see that without the glare of my light, but I love it. Cassandra says, yes, I swatch, but I hate it and not sure it does any good. Okay, Cassandra, love it. Absolutely love it. Totally relate to that comment, because that's exactly why I ended up going into this whole conversation in the first place, because I was struggling with swatching. I'm going to be honest, I've gotten no further in the whole swatching conversation. So I need to take a course. I think a lot of you were with me on that one, that you would like to learn more about gauge and how to figure out gauge and how to work with gauge and how to adjust gauge and all that kind of stuff, so that we get better fitting garments. And interestingly enough, 47% of you, hope I remember this correctly, 47% of you said you swatch. So swatchers, you win. The majority of folks that commented swatch, 35% of us do not swatch. And I say us, I've tried swatching, I don't get swatching, it didn't help me, so I must be doing it wrong. That's all I can say. And I think 18% of you didn't. Sometimes, you swatch sometimes. That was sort of a sometimes category. So I thought it was interesting how many people actually do swatch when they're doing garments. Everybody was in agreement, do not swatch for shawls, but definitely for garments, the majority of people are swatching. And so there has to be a valid reason for doing it. And hey, I'm all for learning about it. So we will have in another video a whole conversation about gauge and swatching at some point, but I just wanted to make sure I followed up on the giveaway. And Cassandra, if you can just email me at nenaknits@gmail.com with your mailing details, I will happily send you off this skein of yarn wherever you live. So this is worldwide. I'm not concerned about where you live. So without further ado, let's talk about finished objects. Can you imagine what my finished object is? Ta-da! This is my Duchene. There you go. I'm gonna model it. This is my version of modeling it, but this is my Duchene. And now let me tell you a little bit about my Duchene. And I have to say, probably the best thing, sorry, I look like a granny when I have my glasses like this. I'm too young for glasses like this. I'm just letting you know. Best 20 bucks I ever spent was on the Vogue knitting project or project journal, because I get to do this. I get to catalog my journey through the project, and this has been exceptionally helpful. So first of all, this pattern is by Layla Raven, and it is available on Ravelry. I think it's about $8 US, don't quote me. And it is the recommended yarn for this particular, I need my glasses, sorry, I can't do it without my glasses. The recommended, lovely hair day. The recommended yarn is Quince & Company Kestrel, which is 100% linen, but it is in a chain construction. So the linen is blown into this chain, which makes it quite a lightweight yarn, even though it's an Aran gauge, weight, but it's a pound-wise, if you want to think of it that way, it's quite light and airy. I opted to go with what I had in my stash, so didn't quite make any stash busting cows, deadlines, unfortunately, but I had the Euroflax 100% wet spun linen in my stash in the aubergine colorway, and that's what this is, and it is actually a sport weight yarn that I held double. And so it's not chainette or chain construction. It is a solid yarn that I held double. So the weight, the actual poundage, even though there's no pounds in it, it's a heavier weight sweater than probably what the Kestrel would have knit up. But what I will say is the drape turned out lovely. Look at this. It's got beautiful drape. It's quite heavy. You can see that, but not uncomfortably heavy. And it's not, it is perfect for this type of weather. And I think it will go well right into the summer. The recommended needle size for this sweater is 6.5 millimeters, which I think is a US 10. I opted for a US 5. And the reason being, I'm going to step up here, hopefully you can see this, is when I used the 6, these stitches were way too open for me, in the 6.5 millimeter, sorry. So I fiddled around a bit and I chose a 5 millimeter, and I really like the density of these particular, of using a 5 millimeter needle. So, I got these wingy things in my hair. Sorry, people, I got these wingy things. I don't know. So what that meant though is when I was using because I was using a smaller needle, funny enough, I got stitch gauge, so the right number of stitches per inch, but I didn't get the right row gauge. It was much shorter rows. So that meant I had to do a full extra lace panel in the sweater to get the right length. So just to recap, this is a cropped sweater. You knit a rectangle for the front with a lace pattern. You knit a rectangle for the back. You seam them together on the shoulders and the sides. Then you pick up stitches around the arms, and it's obviously a drop sleeve. And then I did a 3/4 sleeve. And then you finish the neck edging, and that's about it. It's got a bit of a rolled hem on the cuffs. You can do something different, but it just came with a bind off, which kind of rolls a bit, which I really liked. I love how my seams turned out. My seams, and I'm not an expert seamer. I watched a whole bunch of videos on mattress stitch seaming, and beyond me, I don't know. But I found these seams were really nice. The underarm seams were not, the side seams were not as nice at all. And that's because this section, when you knit you knit top down, but this is your cast on edge. Yes, this is your cast on edge. So it's actually quite even. These stitches on this, on your ends, are just your ends from your last stitches from going back and forth. So they're not necessarily as even. So I just found seaming the shoulders a lot easier and more aesthetically pleasing than actually seaming the sides, to the point where I actually have a hole. Don't think you can see that. So I have to go back and re-seam this part because I've got a hole. Should I be showing all the holes in the sweater? I don't know. But other than that, I absolutely love it. I knit a size 2. The pattern calls for 16 to 22 inches of positive ease. And I'll stand up again. Here's me. Not sucking anything in. That's me. And look at how much positive ease I still have. And I knit a size 2 with a smaller needle. So I probably have about 12 inches of positive ease as opposed to 16 or 22. I'm not sure if anybody else has knit this sweater. Can you let me know? Like, did you knit it with 16 or 22, and how did you like the fit? Because I find this plenty boxy enough, and it turned out really lovely. Aside from the needle gauge, the only other modification I made was I put short rows in the back. What I will say is that my intention was correct. My execution was not, because I don't know anything about sweater construction. I don't know anything about design, so I'm just winging it, and half the time it works out and half the time it doesn't. So why did I do short rows? I did short rows because the pattern is really, you've got the neck up here if you see the pictures, and I can't have anything land right there unless it's a very soft, fluffy, light thing. I don't know why. It's not like, like any kind of pressure. I don't know how guys wear ties. I really don't. But I can't have any pressure there. So I wanted to drop this down just a little bit. So I opted to do German short rows, which is just the process of starting on one side, knitting across. Before you get to the end, you choose a point, and then you turn your work around and knit the other way and keep turning back and forth, shorter than the whole garment. And the idea being is that you're creating a bit of a wedge in the fabric to create length in the middle of the fabric. So you're either raising the back or dropping the back, or dropping the net effect is it ends up dropping the front. Don't ask me exactly how. Now, I think I did mine incorrectly, so I don't know if this is going to be helpful or not. But I don't know if you can see it. No, I've blocked it. No, you can't really see it. I've blocked it quite well, but mine actually, from this shoulder to this shoulder, it actually had a hump. So the back of my sweater was actually going like this. The neck at the back was doing this, as opposed to dropping the front. And I'm going, why did that happen? Why did the front not just drop? Well, I think probably because, one, it's a complete rectangle, and I started my short rows just about here, and I just went between here and here, back and forth and back and forth. And I think what that did is that kind of created a hump at the back. Maybe if I had started lower, so I started like after row 2 or 3, if maybe I'd started in the back lower, so maybe about here on the back, and added short rows, that would not have happened. And 2, maybe not starting the short rows so close to the neckline. This is a full rectangle, and I had lots of geography or lots of space that I could have used. Maybe if I started my short rows way back here and then did them. So maybe both of those things or one of those things might have made a difference. But what saved me is the blocking. So thank you all for your comments about working with linen and blocking linen. You're 100% correct. It did not grow at all in the blocking, in the wetting process. So when you use a superwash wool, it tends to stretch significantly, at least in length, if not in width. Linen did not do that. It held its shape completely. But what I did read were the comments that it blocks really well. So you can basically shape linen into any shape you want. And if you saw the last video, you would know that I was really concerned about the width of these shorter sleeves. It looked, when I tried it on pre-blocking, they were snug. Like, they were snug. I could have still worn it if it had not loosened up at all, but they were snug. Like, you felt that the sleeves were there. So I just blocked them out about 1 inch, and that blocking has held. It's perfect. They're the right width. They're not too gapey. I don't even feel them. It worked out perfectly. So that is my Duchene, my finished object. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend this pattern. Would I knit another one? Probably not, only because it's a very distinctive looking pattern. So don't know that I want a duplicate, but I would highly recommend it. This lace is extremely easy to do and to memorize, and the rest of it is just stockinette. So highly recommend. 2 thumbs up. Oh, I should be like the movie critics. How many thumbs up do you give this sweater pattern? I give it 2 thumbs up. So I absolutely love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's go on to whips. Where should I start? Where is my whip? Okay, let's start with my Sherwood socks. So my Sherwood socks, if you would remember, and that's a pattern from Kay Jones out of the Bakery Bears that isn't released yet. It's a patron-only pattern. It will probably come out later this year, but it's a beautiful sock that has just a center piece all the way up from cuff all the way to toe that is a lace pattern, and then she's got a little bit of a detail on the back, which is sort of like a V-shaped pattern on the back. And I was knitting them out of this beautiful colorway, which was, I do believe, the May 2020 colorway from Sassy String Yarn Studio. I can't remember the colorway. It's escaping me, but I absolutely love this. Oh, maybe I have it. Do I have it? Nope, that's not it. Nope, I don't have the ball bands. See, I've lost the ball band. These are not the right ball bands, but it's just as beautiful. I hope you can see it. It's this purple and pink, different shades of lavender and pink, and it's just a lovely, lovely color. Now, funny thing about the Sherwood socks is apparently I can't do lace in socks. 2 things. Well, lace is the one problem, was doing the lace. The other problem with the socks for me was that I don't know what's happened to my gauge. Here we go again, talking about gauge. I don't know what's happened to my gauge in knitting socks. When I first started knitting socks, I was using a 2.5 millimeter needle. and 64 stitches. And they were fine for the first. Now, I don't know what happened to my gauge when knitting socks. When I first started knitting socks, I started with a 2.5 millimeter needle, 64 stitches for a vanilla sock, and probably for the first 5 pair, it was a perfect fit. And then they got really loose. Don't know what happened. So I went down to a 2.25 millimeter needle, 64 stitches. And that ended up being perfect. And I liked the fabric on the bottom of my foot better because the tighter stitches, I couldn't feel them as much. So if anyone's knitting socks and they're uncomfortable on the bottom of your feet, try going down in needle size. You might have to go up in stitches, but try going down in needle size because the tighter the stitch, the smoother the tighter the woven the fabric will be on the bottom of your foot, and you might not feel it as much. So that's what I did, and it worked really well. Until recently, this is the second pair of socks now where I was thinking, okay, my gauge is getting a little tighter. I don't know why. So I went to 68 stitches in this particular sock pattern. And I also thought, well, there's also lace in this pattern, which tends to be a bit looser. So I thought, okay, I should be okay. If I just go up to a 68 stitch sock, I'll be fine. I don't know what I did, but I could not. I got well past, so it's top down, cuff down. I got probably an inch past the heel. I was doing a shadow wrap, short row shadow wrap heel. Couldn't get them over my arches. Really, I could, but I was going to rip the sock. Like, I mean, it was really, really tight, and not just the cuff, the whole sock. So after 2 or 3 attempts to fix that on the fly, didn't work. I frogged them. So the Sherwood Forest socks, I'm going to make that pattern again, but I'm going to cast on 72 stitches, has now become, they've been frogged, and they have now become just vanilla 3x1 ribbed socks with, again, a shadow wrap, short row heel, and look at them. They're beautiful. At least I'm making progress. I needed to have a bit of a more vanilla knit than doing lace, because obviously my attention to lace on socks is not good. Kept making mistakes, and I just couldn't get them to fit, and that was just my bad. Interestingly enough, 72 stitch cast on. I didn't want to risk these not fitting, so I cast on 72 stitches, and let me tell you, they fit, but they're snug. I don't know what's happening to my knitting is changing somehow. It's getting really tight. I don't know why. I'm not anxious. At least I don't think I am. But anyway, so I'm glad I cast on 72 where these wouldn't fit. So that's where these are at. So I'm hoping to have these finished by the end of May and add them to the year-long sock cal with Knits and Pieces, as well as with A Stitch in Time. Those are 2 podcasts that I watch, and they both have year-long sock cals. So hoping to enter those by the end of May. Fingers crossed, because what is it? It's already the 23rd. I don't have much time left. Eek, eek. The second whip that I want to talk about is this one. Ta-da! So this, if you can, I think you can see it, it's huge. It is on Hannah, which is my dress form. I'm in the middle of a row, so I had to wrap it around. But this you may or may not recognize as the mystery knit along from 2020 from Helen Stewart, Curious Handmade. This was her mystery knit along, and it was called the Stillness Shawl. And this is one of my long-standing whips, and if you've seen previous episodes, you know I have a list of whips that have been sitting around for a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years. This one has been since May 2020. And I got all the way down to halfway through the lace, and I don't know what happened. I got distracted, needed the needles for something else. I'm not too sure what happened, but I stopped in the summer of 2020 and didn't pick it up. And it's just a shame because it's a beautiful shawl. And so I've picked it up again, and I have now, so here's kind of where I left off, and I have now knit all the way down to this section, and I am just starting the very last section, which is in this color. So let me tell you a little about the adventures and misadventures of the stillness shawl. Okay, first of all, don't leave your whips that long because you forget what you're doing. That would be misadventure number 1. Misadventure number 2 with this shawl is the actual pattern calls for using 4mm needles. 4.0 millimeter needles. I have no idea what was going through my head. So either I didn't have 4mm needles, or I thought hang on. Sorry, where was I? Patrick was just giving me a call because, anyway, he's grocery shopping. Yay. Anyway, so misadventure number 1 was I left it too long, forgot where I was. Misadventure number 2 was, in my infinite knitting wisdom, of which I got that much, I opted to use a 5mm needle rather than a 4mm needle. Now, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know if I was thinking that the shawl looked too small and I wanted it bigger, or I just didn't have that needle at the time because it was on another project that I had languishing somewhere. But that's what I opted to do without giving it real thought. You would think, if you're an experienced knitter, and I've been knitting for 4 years now, that you would realize that if you use a bigger needle, 1, you're going to have a bigger garment, and 2, you're going to need more yarn. Arrgh! I cannot believe I didn't think of that. So, here's the big misadventure. Awesome all the way through here, but can you see how big this baby is? It's huge. It's absolutely massive. And I have another 4-inch panel left to go, theoretically. 2, I ran out of all my yarn. So the first yarn is this beautiful, beautiful, rusty, orangey, burnt orange, not quite red. I can't call it red. It's more like a burnt orange. Called Red Rock, Arizona, and it is from the Knot House, from Heather's Dyeing, and it's in their diamond sock base. It's lovely. It is a wool mohair nylon blend. Lovely, lovely yarn, quite rustic. The white is, and I don't know if you can see it, it's an off-white, and it has little speckles of hot pink and aqua and green and burnt orange, a lot of burnt orange. And then this darker stripe here is actually, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, probably not from there, so I don't know how to show it. I might have to insert a picture, but is actually alpaca boucle. And so both of these yarns are from Hedgehog Fibers. So this is Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles Merino in the Urchin colorway, and this is Hedgehog Fibers in their alpaca boucle. And I've held this double. I got this as part of a Stephen West knit along at one point, and I just never used it. And this alpaca boucle, which again you probably can't see in the camera, but also has the same speckles as the Urchin. So the hot pink, the aqua, the burnt orange, and it's on a dusty rose base. So those 3 paired really, really well together. You were supposed to have 1 skein of each. Well, for the red, for the Red Rock, Arizona, I was doing pretty well. I've got this much left. This is not a lot of yarn. It's maybe 1/4 of a skein left. And I probably should have 40% of the skein left, but I have 1/4. And that would be because I ran out of yarn. For the Urchin, I got all the way to the bottom of this stripe section, ran out of yarn. Luckily, I got all the way down to here, pardon me, and I ran out of yarn. Luckily, I had another skein. Yay. The boucle, I got all the way to here, and this is it, folks. I got no more, and I have nothing that would match or even come close. And so I can't do, this is supposed to be another 2 to 3 inches of a section. I can't do that. So I'm just stopping it, obviously. And the next section is the rusty orange again in a bit of a lacy border. The lacy border is supposed to also be 4 inches. If I get 3 or 4 rows out of this, it will be amazing. So it's 523 stitches. It is not a Stephen West schlanket, but it has turned out to be a schlanket because of my 5mm needle. So I don't know how, I mean, I need more than 2 or 3 rows. So when I was in Virginia, the week of May 1st through the 9th, and we went to the Knot House and we said hello to Heather and Kathy. It was lovely. But Heather doesn't dye this anymore. And this is not a colorway that she's kept, and it's not in her stash. And I tried everything, trust me. I begged. But no, they didn't have it. When we went to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, I looked everywhere for a color that was close to this. Nothing in the right weight. I found a lace weight that looked really good. I could have held that double, I suppose. And then a bulky weight, but nothing that I could use. So here is one awesome argument in favor of curating and collecting yarn, because you never know when you are in crisis and you need to, when you are in crisis and you need to match some yarn. Oh my goodness, look at this. Okay, it's not exact. You can see that it's not exact. This is a little darker, but come on, these have the same tones. This is just like, is it just me that sees it, or is this actually quite a good match? I am so optimistic. This is Ancient Arts Socknado, which is, I do believe, 80% merino, 20% nylon, if I'm not mistaken. It could be 75-25, but in their pumpkin spice colorway. And I got this online because they were raising money for charity for an animal shelter or some sort of animal welfare thing. Can't remember. I think that's what it was. It was definitely for charity, but I can't remember. I know all their animal named colorways go to charity, but this was something special because I normally wouldn't buy burnt orange for socks. I don't know, but I did, and look. So one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to knit this until I have no more on the border, or I'm going to start alternating. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start alternating and just do the whole border so that it kind of matches. The only stripe that won't really be, what do you call it? Not symmetrical. Well, I guess symmetrical, because this really should be 2 inches deeper, 3 inches deeper. That'll be the only odd stripe out, I guess. But that is my adventure and misadventure with the Stillness shawl. So, stash. Keep a stash. You never know when it comes in handy. So my next whips, I'm not going to go over my Nurtured sweater by Andrea Mowry because I'm on the fence about, I've knit both sleeves up to about here. You knit the sleeves first. I love that sweater. To about here. But I'm not sure those sleeves, I think they might be a little snug. I have to think about it. So I haven't really worked much on it. And then on top of that, I got totally distracted by, I want to say Shire. I'll think of her name. It's escaping me at the moment. I'll put it down here. From Imagine Landscapes. In her latest Gnome mystery knit-along, which is called Make Gnome Mistakes. Love that. I started one gnome way back in 2019. Let's start with that one. I started a gnome in 2019 in Spain. It was my very first knit-along, period. Very first knit-along. And I don't know why I lost steam, probably because we were golfing and exploring. It was our first real stay in Estepona. And so it was called her Gnome is Where Your Hat Is. That was the mystery knit-along. And it was a December 2019 knit-along. And it was called Gnome is Where Your Hat Is. Love it. And this is sort of how far I've gotten. So I had done up to about here, and then I stopped, and I just picked it up this week. And so I have knit the hat. I'm not giving away anything. This is a 2019 mystery knit-along. This is the hat. Look at how beautiful it is. And it's all done with scrap yarns that I had while I was in Spain from sweaters that I knit. And this is the body, the start of the body. Then you have to put a little nose and a mustache, and it gets a little sweater in a different color. I can't wait to see how this guy turns out. But look with the little ear flaps. That is so cute. It's so cute. So this is Gnome is where your hat is so far. So that's a work in progress. So I had to share that with you. But this is a long-standing WIP that I didn't list because honestly I forgot all about it. So now that I'm into the new mystery knit along called Make Gnome Mistake, I thought I've got a gnome that I've been working on. Anyway, I pulled it out and I'm going to finish it. Now for the current mystery knit along, I'm not going to show my work because I don't want to give anything away, because honest to goodness, if you have not knit a gnome before, I highly recommend it because it is nice to see progress. When you're knitting garments and even socks, it can take a long time to get anywhere, to feel like you're making progress. These gnomes, what a blast. I fired through. So she just dropped clue 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and is not too late to start because trust me, you could do clues 1 through 5 in one day. Absolutely, you could do that. But I got so excited. I did all the clues and I thought, oh, I could knit another one. Well, I ended up I'm knitting 3 at the same time. So I'm going to show you the yarn combinations for, this is one gnome, and I don't know if you can see the stellina, but this is one gnome, and it's a winter themed gnome where the white is the main color. The white and the dark blue are the hat, and the light blue is going to be the body. The white is also the beard. So that is gnome number 1. And this is I'm keeping it in my little gray owl project bag with honeybees. I love that one. I got that on Etsy. It's just a little gray owl. She's called the Little Gray Owl. My second gnome is more of an autumn themed gnome, and I'm using 3 colors from my Woodberry Advent from 2020. So I've got my light, my medium, and my dark, and this is gnome number 2, and gnome number 2 is being held in my the Tangled Stitch project bag. And that's Kelly from Knits and Pieces. And my third gnome is also a Christmas gnome, but the yarn is from a kit I bought from Ancient Arts. And look at the project bag. It came in a little, don't you love that? A gnome. And these are the 3 colorways. I just love them. Very festive. This one's called City Chic, I think. This one is called Red Something, and this one's called Ugly Christmas Sweater. I want an entire sweater in this colorway for the festive season. I'm sorry. This knits up. It might not be able to see it in this format, but wait till you see it knit up. It is so much fun. So I love it. Anyway, so I'm knitting 4 gnomes really, all at the same time. And that is this is what happens. You get distracted. Then all of a sudden, knitting 523 stitches of a lace pattern, you just need a break. You need to feel like you're making progress. But I certainly hope to get this done by the end of the month as well, because once I finish this, that would mean that I have completed, of my long-standing WIPs, I have completed the Speckle and Pop. I have completed the Brioche-alicious from Andrea Mowry, which I will show some pictures up here. I showed it on my last podcast. Remember, I was talking, I didn't necessarily like the colors, or I wasn't sure they were peacock colors. And I struggled through that whole entire gigantic shawl, brioche, wondering whether I liked the color combination and whether my sister would like it. Well, it turned out gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and my sister loved it. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. So I'll show some pictures up here. So I will have done Brioche-alicious, Speckle and Pop. What else did I finish? I finished something else. Oh, it's not funny. It's escaping me now. Oh, my breathing space sweater. Did that one. That was in a previous podcast. Hoping to finish this one. That will leave me the Astraeus sweater by Bad Wolf Girl Knits, Megan Reagan. Patty's sweater, which I still have to do. And my Slipstravaganza shawl from Stephen West. So maybe the Astraeus and the Slipstravaganza are going to be Christmas in July knitting. We'll see. We'll see. But plowing through them. But as soon as I have this one finished, actually not this one finished, as soon as I have all of my long outstanding whips done, I am going to have a feverish cast-on party. A cast-on fever fiesta. A cast-on fever fiesta. That's what I'm going to do because I have so many projects I want to cast on that I'm just so excited about because I have so many beautiful yarns that I'm dying to knit with, and I just want to share them all. And I want to start knitting with them all. So it's pretty exciting. So that kind of concludes the knitting portion. I'm going to talk a little bit about acquisitions as I talk about the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. And yeah, that'll wrap it up for today. So if you want to tune out now, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you enjoyed some of the adventures and misadventures of my knitting. And for those of you that want to stick around for the chatter and a little bit about Maryland Sheep and Wool, that's what we'll do now. So quick sip of coffee. Wow, that cooled off quickly. Not sure about that. Okay, so my mom and I went to Virginia May 1st through 9th. And we went because it was my sister's birthday. And you can travel after COVID. So we haven't seen her. So we saw her last summer, mind you, but we wanted to go for her birthday and spoil her rotten, which was a lot of fun. And then we also, all three of us wanted to go to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, which was on the Saturday, May 7th, I do believe. So we get there. My sister lives 45 minutes outside of Washington, D.C., and she lives on 10 beautiful acres. And I'll throughout this conversation, I will be putting some images for you to see up on the side. I'll probably split the screen. But Virginia is the South. I always forget that. It just doesn't seem to me like Washington, D.C. should be the South, but Virginia is definitely the South. And you can tell when you're there just because of the air. It's just silky somehow and soft, and the bees are humming and the birds are singing, and it was just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And my sister and her husband are just such gracious hosts. And John, I really enjoyed having my coffee made for me every day. So yes, my brother-in-law made me coffee every morning, which was wonderful. And my sister, in our bedrooms, it was like being in a hotel. She had a tray of pretzels and chocolates and nuts and a big bottle of water, and it was and house robes. We even had our own house robes. I mean, my goodness. She missed her calling. She should have run a hotel. It was lovely. We got spoiled rotten. Really, really nice. So midweek we celebrated her birthday. It wasn't actually her birthday. Her actual birthday was last week. But her and her husband were going away and visiting some other family members on his side. So Mom and I, coming early, just gave us the opportunity to give her an extra celebration. So she had 2 or 3 birthdays in the month of May. So that kind of worked out well. So that was a lot of fun. And then on the Saturday, we obviously went to the Knot House and we toured around a little bit. We didn't do any touring because COVID is still out there. My mom is still 83. And quite frankly, we just wanted to sit and relax and be, with my sister doing whatever she wanted to do. So on the Saturday, we went to the Sheep and Wool Festival, Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. And wow, huge, huge venue. I will say that, massive venue. So we have Knit City here, which takes over, I think it's the Pacific Coliseum. Or is it the Pacific Coliseum? Yeah, I think it is the Pacific Coliseum, which is an arena. But the Maryland Sheep and Wool is like taking over the entire Pacific National Exhibition Fairgrounds. So it's huge. It had 7 outlying barns, 1 main building with offices and real public washrooms. Like they had several sets of real public washrooms. And then they had all these tents and trailers and food trucks, and it was massive, huge. Over 250 vendors were there. So, oh my gosh, you couldn't do it in one day. Not correct. You couldn't do it properly in one day. Not at all. So if you're ever, sorry, my camera keeps cutting out. So if you're ever planning on going, make sure you plan to go for the full 2 days, because we didn't get to see a lot of the livestock and the herding demonstrations and the shearing demonstrations. One, because of the lack of time, but 2, also because it was storming. You've probably already heard this. Storming. Honestly, it could have been in Vancouver. It was something like, I don't know, 57 degrees. Oh no, it was 47 degrees one day. Yeah, on the Saturday. It started at 47 degrees and I think it warmed up to a whole 54. So it was about 7 degrees Celsius and sideways pelting rain. Okay, Mom and I did not bring galoshes. We didn't bring a raincoat. We're thinking it's the South. But my sister, being a trooper, she lent us her stuff. So thank goodness I had runners, and I was quite happy to sacrifice my runners. Not a problem. But Mom needed boots, so Mom wore my sister's boots. My sister wore a pair of boots that they're relatively new, but had been in the garage for like 10 years in storage. She pulls them out. We drive 45 minutes to get to the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. We get out of the truck. We're walking in the rain and the muck and the wind. You could not have umbrellas. It was too windy. Excuse me. And we walk in, and my sister goes, you know what? I don't know. My feet feel funny. You know, there's something wrong with my boots. We look down, and I'll show you a picture. Her boots disintegrated. They're waterproof boots, but the rubber that was waterproof, I guess, it crystallized. It dried out, dehydrated, whatever. It disintegrated in pieces. So we started laughing about that, and then we walked around for an hour, and then the bottoms started separating from the tops. It was crazy. So my poor sister's clomping along on these boots that are, like she's holding up with the top of her feet, getting soaking wet. After a couple of hours, Mom had enough. Kudos to Mom. She managed slogging around in that stuff for 2 hours. And then I walked her back to the truck and we exchanged boots. I took Mom's boots, brought them to my sister, and she put those boots on and she threw the other ones in the garbage. It was quite fun. It was funny. People were stopping in the middle of going, "What's wrong with your boots?" Oh my God. So that happened, and then because the weather was so bad and because my mom was sitting in the truck, my sister and I just ripped around to every stall that we could. And I really want to say what a great, or whoever organizes it, wow, amazing. And kudos to all the vendors that were in the outlying tents. I can't explain to you how rotten the weather was, because it was rotten even for Vancouver standards. It was rotten. And the fairgrounds aren't like here. It was actually almost like farmland, and so the water just came up. They couldn't put enough hay down in those outlying tents. They had sandbags, straw, everything they could think of. They were laying on the ground to stop the mud from coming in. The water was coming right through the canvas tents. The yarn was soaking wet in many of the tents. I felt so bad for those vendors. However, from that soaking wet yarn, I did make a few purchases. So overall, well organized, huge event, so much selection, and the incredible artwork that you see there. I'll put some pictures up. In particular, I'll start with the felting. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm going to show you a picture of a felted dragon. It was going for $7,800, I think, US, and it was just a piece of art. It was just beautiful. And I got some felted, I don't know if I can show you these properly without getting too blurry, but I got these felted earrings. from the Sassy Phoenix. Is that what it was called? The Sassy Phoenix? Is that who? No. Not the Sassy Phoenix. No, the Zazzy Peacock. The Zazzy Peacock made my felted earrings, but she also made felted necklaces, including the chain was felted. It was, again, phenomenal. If I can put some images in there, I will. But the artistry was absolutely second to none. The yarn selections were amazing. I will show a picture of my sister up here with our joint yarn haul. Some of it I've left with her, so she's going to bring it when she comes in August. But what I did bring home with me were two really nice additions to my curation, to my stash. This is from Ailing Yarns. I think that's how you pronounce it. And this is, what is this? This is her Tweedy DK, her Tweed DK in the Cobblestone Corridor colorway. And it's just this beautiful tonal gray with black and taupe neps in it. And I bought a sweater's quantity of that. Oh, it's just so lovely. And interestingly enough, this yarn was soaking wet, but they had one dry skein, so I could see what it looked like. And it hung in my sister's dining room for 2 days, drying off before I had to pack it. The next acquisition is this Miss Babs. Oh, look at this. This is a beautiful stellina. I don't know if you can see the stellina, but this was Miss Babs' colorway for the festival. And this is called Kite Surfer in her Estrelita base, which is her sock, her stellina sock base. And I bought 2 skeins of that because I want to make a shawl. I just don't know which shawl yet. So stay tuned for that. I also purchased, because I fell in love with the whole felting thing, some pot or counter protectors. I don't know what you call them. This is for my mug. Yay. But look at these colors. These are so happy. These colors make me very happy. So I love that. So those were my acquisitions. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but those were my acquisitions from Maryland Sheep and Wool. And I'm just going to have to go back many times. And literally the next time I go, my sister and I will be taking courses, and we are going to be there for the full 2 days. My one celebrity sighting, I guess, was, and not that Chevis ever would watch my podcast, but if she does, I owe you an apology. I think I scared her, honest to God. She probably thought I was this raving lunatic. I see this person walking into a barn right in front of my sister and I recognized her from the back. Like, don't ask me how, but I just knew that that's who that was. And I went, in my head, I thought I was speaking in my head, but apparently it came out of my mouth because I said, turn around, almost like, forcefully. So I was just so excited. She turned around and she sort of looked wide-eyed, and then she smiled this big, beaming smile. And I said, oh my goodness, Chevis, it's so nice to meet you. And she's like, come in out of the rain, just stand with me for a couple seconds. How are you doing? And she was asking us about the festival, and she goes, don't leave here. She was just getting her lunch. Like, she was, had a piece of pastry in one and a coffee in the other. I can't remember what she was drinking in the other hand. But she was so gracious and so nice. And so here's my little fangirl picture of that. But because I love her Chevy stuff room. I love the stuff room. I love her podcast. And it was just so nice to see somebody in person. And also I didn't expect it because I don't know geography of where the podcasters that I watch actually live, except for the ones locally. I'm sort of a little bit geographically challenged that way, so it didn't even occur to me that she might be there. But apparently there was quite a few of them, but she was my only celebrity sighting. So that was kind of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then other than that, I had my very first, I don't know what it was called. It's not a falafel. It's not an Eccles cake. I'll put it down here. It was some sort of deep fried thing with icing sugar all over it. I'm sure it was 1,000 calories. I ate every bite and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And trust me, after being, 4 hours out in the pouring, freezing rain, it was a nice treat. So highly recommend the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival if you get an opportunity to go. And yeah, I will definitely go back. Definitely worth it. Yeah, okay, so that is everything, folks. I hope you found that entertaining. And yeah, glad I could share that with you. Thank you so much for watching the podcast. If you enjoyed the content, please give it a like. You don't need to subscribe because, like I said, I don't make any money from it. But if you do subscribe, it just means that when I podcast again, you'll be notified. So do what you like, kind of works, but at least give it a thumbs up. At a minimum, give it a thumbs up. And whatever comments you would love to leave me, I am going to thank you in advance. And I tried to answer as many as I can. I haven't answered, I think I still have 5 or 6 that I have to answer from the last video, but please leave me a comment. I love connecting with you and am very, very grateful for those comments. All right, everybody, have a fabulous day, and I look forward to talking to you very soon. Take care.
Oh, okay.
So besides that, and then the other thing that I kind of dislike about organic farming, if I were it's very easily available once we see
Here, you want me to type it? Got it.
You're so cute.
For 6 months, I opened a business up there. Kind of started one, how to keep knitting.
That sounds good. But I just love the color combination, man. It's really,
It's actually a blending. It's like a carder. I mean, so carder's a machine, but this one you would brush it all in and it would pull off as well.